Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Split, the young adult book review podcast for readers and writers. I'm Brian Cohen, the author of the Ted Saves the World series. That's Robert Scanlon, author of the Dreamer Chronicles. He is dancing. He is grooving. If you're listening to the audio, you are missing out on some sweet, sweet Australian moves. How are you doing on this fine day, Robert?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, really well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm definitely just getting over some end of winter cold stuff. And the fact that I have been able to talk through our last video, which we just recorded, behind the curtain, and the fact that I'm still able to talk is a good thing, because the last couple of weeks have not been so easy in podcast world for my voice. So I'm a happy camper. I feel like I'm matched with my ideal self right now.
Oh, I feel like I'm totally the right person for you as well. Isn't that crazy?
We're talking about Matched today, a book by Ali Condi. And I feel like we've done the young adult dystopian book before, so it's interesting now that we've gotten to see a few different flavors of it. I feel like we can decide which flavors we like, versus if we had just only read The Hunger Games and didn't really know what else was out there. So it's really cool getting to see these slight variations and see how we like them and what we take from them as readers and writers. So this was an interesting one to check out.
It was, and interesting to read immediately after the one we did last week, Beautiful Creatures, because they really couldn't be more different in writing style, although some of the premises are similar. We've got the love story, we've got, well, in this case, we've got a bit of a triangle thing. And I have to admit, when I first started reading it, my mouth dropped. Oh no, this is going to be really hard going. But then it wasn't. So well, let's give the summary, shall we, and move into it.
Yep, sounds good. Everything in Kesha's world has been chosen. What she can read, what to believe, and who she'll love. A seeming glitch in the choice of her perfect match has Kesha unsure if her mate is to be Xander, a lifelong friend, or Kai, a boy who's been forbidden from the matching system. As Kesha leans towards the more impossible of the two choices, she doubts the society's purported perfection and wonders if there's a world out there where she can finally choose for herself. So the audiobook, it's funny when you hear a character's name versus how it's spelled, because the audiobook is Kesha.
Yes.
It's tough to know if Cassia is pronounced that way. I think, of course, of Kesha, the pop star, who has the $sign as her S.
Right.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Dystopic societies, problems, as I like to say. This world makes sense. Unlike some of the other books we've read, it makes sense that this kind of thing could happen, and it's incredibly frightening because, of course, it touches on culture, restriction, and whatnot. It reminds me a lot of The Giver, which I believe you have not. Have you read?
Yes, I've read The Giver, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Reminds me a lot of The Giver in its perfect society construct. But I think this goes in depth in some ways that flesh out the story nicely. What are your first impressions?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's a utopian story in the sense.
Dystopia, utopia.
No, I'm not correcting you, because it's a utopia that becomes dystopian, and so to me it reminded me of Brave New World, because those are the sci-fi books that I grew up with when I was a kid.
Love Brave New.
Yeah, and so, but you're right. The Giver is another example of a controlled society, and I think that's what didn't get me at first, because having literally finished probably the same day Beautiful Creatures and being left with that gorgeous sumptuous, rich feeling that book delivered, it was a little flat. And, okay, well, what's going to happen? And then I realised that a lot of the flatness was so beautifully done because it is actually, that is the world. The world is, they've got 100 poems they're allowed to be told and know.
They're not allowed to write. They have to pick sentiments.
That's right. Which is a little weird. They're not allowed to write, but they can read. I didn't really quite understand some of that, being taught to write again.
There was a little maybe like, just go with the author on this one.
Suspend disbelief for a while. So once I realised that everything was being chosen, and honestly, Bryan, it took me 30 or 40 pages for this to happen. Now, that may be because of the book I just finished. So bear with me, listeners. I do think this book is worth a read. I really wouldn't have said that in the first 30 pages, so please forgive me, Ali Condi. I didn't mean it. But yeah, it is cleverly done, and the utopia, which really does feel like a utopia to start with. I mean, she's really excited to go to the matching banquet and find out who her true match will be, and everything's computer predicted. So we've got shades of Google coming in and letting us know how our lives are going to be. They're going to show us what we want to know about before we even know we want it ourselves. And this is really the big premise of this. But as you say, the cracks start to show. And that's where the intrigue starts to happen in the book. And of course, we've got the triangle, the person that she's matched with, and then some computer glitch that leads her to believe it might even be somebody else, and she's not sure, and nobody's sure, and then everything's unsure, and then we're not sure, and it's great. I
was just reminded in 13 Reasons Why that they have the computerized matching thing for her to find people she likes and whatnot, led by the cheerleading squad or something like that.
Oh, that's right.
Just remembering
that's
that.
Right.
I was like, which book was that? We've read 24 books. But yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think this story, I don't know, kind of to change gears, this story depends on if you like Kesha, because she's the lead. It's all from her perspective. And I don't know, I'm on the fence about liking her. We've had these strong female characters. We've had some great, in similar, like, as much as you didn't like America's Name in the selection, she's great as a character. She's three-dimensional, and in this story, a lot of things happen to Kesha, and she makes changes based on those things that happen to her. But she didn't sway me like some other well-developed female main characters. Maybe I like a little more sass in my heroines. But I understand why there isn't sass, and this is one of those tough things.
Yes,
it's like,
she's appropriate.
The world makes people boring, but you have to have a non-boring character for people to care about the book. So that's tough. That's tough to rectify for me, and I'm sure some readers have had issues with that. I don't read the reviews like you do. I just kind of go for it. But I'm sure some people might feel as though, like you said, the writing a little bland at first, especially compared to something more lyrical, and the characters a little more bland at first. Some of the characters like Kai and the grandfather I had more fun with, but yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts on character.
And I think you're right. There's some inconsistency as well in there. Occasionally Xander, who is supposedly her true match and actually been her best friend since childhood, he doesn't necessarily act the way a jilted boyfriend might from time to time as well. So I think there are some odd things in there, but the whole world is a little odd, and so you kind of forgive it for that. She's certainly no Katniss. There's no question about that. And also we're now so familiar with Katniss in the way that Jennifer Lawrence has so wonderfully portrayed her. So we've got that real dystopian heroine, and she isn't that in this book. There's a hint of maybe at the end, that she's starting to find herself. She is only 15 and becoming 16. She is unsure of the fact that this world that she thought was so perfectly organized for her now actually might even be the reverse. And so I think she's, if you read the book knowing that she's going to be an uncertain character who's really struggling and probably even make some bad decisions, then I think the story really works well. If you read it expecting it to be a YA action adventure story, it's not. If you read it expecting it to be a YA love triangle, it's really not that either. It's more, like you say, a more like The Giver or Brave New World, where the world itself and its claustrophobia is where the main flavour of the story comes through, I think. So for me, it ended up being a really good read. I honestly wanted to toss it in the first few pages, and then, I mean, I don't, because I couldn't come to the show.
We got to do the show.
So what happened in the end, Brian? And also, I think, there was some silly devices, but then it's sci-fi, and there was
exactly.
Whatever. As long as they don't really become a plot point. And they came dangerously close to it, but maybe we should move into the writer's perspective then, because it's sort of.
Well, one last thought. You had good segue with talking about how it's more like The Giver than it is. It's more like a book you'd read in high school than a book you'd necessarily read for pleasure, and you can get pleasure out of it, certainly. There's great philosophical questions in this one.
Yeah, that's true.
What should society choose, and what should we choose ourselves? So it's a great book for people to read when pondering those kind of questions. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily literary fiction. I guess it is a little bit, but maybe more so than some of the stuff we've read.
Yeah.
But it can be a reading list book.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really well-made point, Brian. And it's clean. There's some kissing and there's a bit of a romance in there, but it's perfectly clean. I did also read something from the author that said that specifically, if you're after one of those action-driven young adult thrillers, this is not it. And it's not that it's slow-paced; it's just a different type of action. It's, as you say, maybe a philosophical action, a world that's slowly crumbling, that the officials, quote unquote, are trying to keep together but struggling to do so. So it may have been a perfect world for some time, but it's now starting to fall apart because maybe some of those precepts just don't work anymore. There are only 100 good books. There are only 100 great pieces of art. There are only 100 great poems. Maybe after a while, humanity doesn't accept that.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree.
These and more questions shall be answered on the split.
This week. Let's definitely move into the writer's perspectives then.
Yes.
My point is really similar to what you just said. I was going to say the society is well drawn. I understand how it works, and it seems really precarious. And so I'm glad that it's pretty apparent from the beginning in this series that the stitching is starting to show, or we're seeing kind of the innards of it a little bit, because if it was just perfect society from the beginning, and we've seen some society books that maybe don't even change a little bit until the end, and so it's good that they're kind of towards the beginning we have the glitch, and that really kicks things off, is that the society has some issues. And I think that was smart. If you're writing one of those kind of utopia books, then you need to show cracks early on, or else it's going to get boring real quick.
Oh, for sure. And, it's not an immediate launch into the oppressive dystopia of, say, the Hunger Games, and we don't have what I would consider to be the sort of strange situation of the divergent factions. This seems like an everyday normal life until you sort of read these, hang on a minute, they're going to be predicted who their future husband is going to be. They're going to be ooh, okay, interesting. So,
when they got to like the 100 poems thing, I was like, yes, tell me more.
It's interesting. I like. And so, you've got to give it to Ali Condé for tackling a broken utopia rather than just falling straight into, there's been I mean, are you on quite a few email lists that send promotions about Kindle books every day?
Oh yeah, of course.
Right. Like every author is. You see hundreds of these things a week. I can't count now. I've totally lost count how many times the book description starts out with "A mysterious plague has swept America clean of humanity." Oh, really? Oh, again? So it's kind of nice to read something where there wasn't a wipeout. We don't actually really know much of the backstory about how this utopia came to be, only that it became a way for society to protect itself. But then there are hints that there are some other regions where there is trouble a little brewing. And so I will read on. I don't know if you will read on, but I think I'd like to know how it pans out in the series.
Nah. No, I got right now. Throne of Glass is probably on my the ones next one I would want to tackle.
Right.
I was thinking while you're talking, you're gonna love my Dystopia Utopia book that I've got in mind, a series for after Ted Saves the World. So we'll talk about that at some point off the air.
Also, from a writer's perspective, by the way, if I know it's not a visual show, so I'm not going to hold anything up, but you should go look at the cover, because I think the cover for this is really gorgeous. It's
the whole series. The whole series has a great theme with the covers.
It does. And that's a writer's perspective. So job done.
Yeah,
great job.
Yeah.
Hey, should we go into takeaways or?
I have so many writers' perspectives I haven't talked about.
No way. Go for it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll go quick, though. I already mentioned I like Kai. He's pretty interesting. Xander has his moments, like the grandfather. Kesha is boring. So I just wanted to point that out again. You need a compelling main character to keep my attention and the attention of many readers. This was more first-person present. God, if that just ended right now, I'd be fine with never reading another first-person present book. But I guess it's the thing with dystopia, utopia, YA. I think this one did fine with it. I wasn't as annoyed with it as I've been in the past. I'd love to see some shifting perspective, though. I think that does happen later on in the series.
Right.
I was looking at the descriptions for some of the other ones, and I look forward to, if I decide to go on, I look forward to some shifting perspective, because I don't know. Like, you've got me stuck in a first-person present bubble with a main character I don't identify with. That's a tough book for me to get through. And I got through it, and I did like it, but I'm just saying generally that's not a good formula to keep my attention.
I do wonder if maybe the audio version wasn't done as well, because I agree with what you're saying about Cassia. There's no question about that. I would put it from a writer's perspective down to the fact that her goals are not really clear. And so you don't really know what she wants, and to go back to acting school, what's her motivation? Motivation, I don't know. So maybe that really also is emphasized in the audio, unlike last week's book, Beautiful Creatures, where the Southern style really brings that book even more to life in audio. Perhaps this is one of those ones that didn't work quite as well.
Yeah, that could be.
Kasha.
All right, hit me with
Kasha.
It's Kassia. Hit me with a takeaway.
A takeaway. Look, I thought it was really good to see a different take on a young adult love story set in a brave new world. That was really interesting. So, if you do want to see how young love deals with the constraints of an oppressive society that is not necessarily dystopian but just oppressive, then well worth a read.
Yeah, I agree with that. My takeaway is, have a deeper philosophy built into your book if you want to make it a great reading club, high school list kind of book, because there's a big market out there for young readers in schools, and as much as I'd love to get Ted Saves the World into some schools, and I've gotten it into one school, which I received an email about, it's not really a reading club book. It's not really a essay question book. But this is,
yes,
by far this is, and I'm sure it's
yes.
been on, since it's been out, it's been on tons of reading lists for high school students because it's clean, maybe even middle school students. And and so I think that if you're looking for that market, you need to bake in the philosophy into your loaf of bread of your book. So,
ooh, Bryan's advice on writing to market. Mm-hmm. And but you're right. I mean, it's I was going to say cleverly packaged, and that's really not doing a. It's very clear what Ali Condé wanted this story to be, I think,
yes.
and which leads me to my next takeaway, which is what I really liked, and I think you should read the book for this reason. Is throughout the book, there's a palpable fear that people have of the officials, and yet some of them are officials. So even Cassia's parents are officials and have to act in official capacity, and they're really scared of doing the wrong thing and being found out, but they are aware that things are not quite as they seem. So we've got that conflict between what you're told to do in society and what you think is right. And we have that today, so, maybe we're told to do things by the government, by our taxation authorities, road rules, school rules, business rules, and there are things that we comply because we have to, but we resent them, and we're in fear of authority because of it. So I really liked how that played through the book in a different way. So, and that's what for me gave it the Brave New World sense.
Yeah. No, I agree totally.
So, prompt me.
Prompt you. I realized I hadn't written one, so I just threw something together.
Quick, you are the man on the go. He just nails them out. This is, if you haven't read any of Bryan's prompting books, and not that you can't necessarily read a prompting book, it's kind of one that you just open.
Pick and choose.
A lot of people think, prompters. You think of a dragon, give it a name and a goal. It's Bryan's stuff is really rich. You should really go and check it out. There's some really interesting prompts in there that get you thinking. And one day, we'll release a book of the split prompts.
Ooh, that's a good idea. That is a good idea.
Anyway, take it.
And
away.
Thank you for the praise, Robert. I appreciate it.
It's genuine.
What's a choice you're not allowed to make that you feel everybody should be allowed to choose? What would change in your life if you were able to make that choice, and why?
Cool. That's deep. Someone's going to bring out some kind of philosophical comment in the website.
I would love that if someone brought up a philosophical comment on the splitbookreviews.com.
That's right. Bryan is present and Robert is existential.
Yes, pretty much. Writing to market. So go answer that prompt already on the splitbookreviews.com. Go leave us a review already on the iTunes. And we would really appreciate that for a variety of reasons. We really love getting feedback, so feel free to email us using the contact form on I almost said Sell More Book Show. Hilarious. On the splitbookreviews.com. And it really helps us when you give us suggestions of books and when you tell us what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, and we'll just keep trying to get better and better.
Well, exactly. This is a book all about questioning the rules matched. So if you want to question any of the rules of the split, just talk to the officials.
We're the officials. Oh my gosh. Next week, we are doing I Am Number 4 by Pittacus Lore, which you're a huge fan of.
I am a huge fan of.
And you said that before we even read it. I'll wait until next week to tell you my secret opinion on this book. So you better.
In suspense.
I know, so much suspense. So come back next week and check us out. And I hope that you have more choices in your society than Kesha has in hers.
Yes. Indeed. Don't be boring, people.
Don't be boring. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you guys for watching. Somewhere on this page is a subscribe button to the Split channel. We do reviews every week. We would love it if you followed us every single week. Isn't that right, Robert?
That's exactly right. Follow us now. Hit the subscribe button.
Do it.